I was on Forbes 30 under 30, which was really funny because I had like less than $30 in my bank account. We're quote unquote competing with the biggest companies on earth. We definitely were not rich, but we were experientially rich. And I think so the time thing is probably more important than money. The most fun part about being in a friendship or a relationship is like learning new things together.
Bridget Hilton transformed her passion for music into a remarkable journey that saw her influencing some of the biggest careers in the music industry.
She not only sold millions of products and collaborated with giants like Google, Delta Airlines, and Amazon, but also traveled the globe, gifting over 50,000 people with the invaluable gift of hearing.
Bridget is a Forbes 30 under 30 recipient for social entrepreneurship.
And if I would have followed, some other person's path or what my school wanted me to do, I would have never been happy.
I was going to say that you're going to give me a midlife crisis right now.
The public education system here needs to be completely revamped. Wow, I learned trigonometry, but I didn't learn how to do my taxes. I was like, there's so many people in the world that have actually never heard anything, let alone heard music.
Can you share some story where everything was almost falling apart and how you navigated this time?
We ended up actually doing one of the biggest studies of all time about life experiences.
The Avenue of the Strongest is a podcast dedicated to exploring the lives and experiences of the most inspiring individuals from around the world. Each episode features interviews with fascinating guests who share their insights and wisdom on a variety of topics, including education, impact, motivation, health, and learning. Here are your hosts, Anayet Chowdhury and Vlad Suleiman.
This podcast is sponsored by ArgoPrep, an award-winning educational publisher serving over 1 million students nationwide. If you're a kindergarten to 8th grade teacher or principal, be sure to check out our supplementary workbooks to get your students ready for standardized state testing. We cover all subjects from kindergarten to 8th grade. Use the coupon code AVENUE for a 25% discount off of all purchase orders. Visit us today at argoprep.com/store. Bridget, welcome to the show. It's an absolute pleasure.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to chat.
The first thing, first of all, we of course do prep and background research on all of our guests, but the first thing that stuck out, well, there's a lot of things that stick out, but you have traveled to all 50 states, is that correct?
Yes, I have.
I'm not even going to go into the international, the other countries yet, but you've traveled to all 50 states. Now, and you mentioned that it's estimated that half of Americans see fewer than 10 states in their lifetimes. First of all, I guess my first question would be, and let me clarify one other thing. When you mean you traveled, it wasn't like just driving through, like, hey, I drove through, Pennsylvania, we're going to get this checked off. But instead, you've actually gone to these states and you try to immerse and learn the culture and the food and various things of that nature. Is that correct?
That is correct. And everywhere I went, I tried to be very intentional about that and tried to talk to, random people that lived there about their lives and like their values and what they thought. And I'm really into food. So everywhere I went, I had like a very specific, I wanted to get the lobster rolls when I was in Boston. I wanted to get beignets when I was in New Orleans and stuff like that. And so I'm very intentional about where I go and planning out the experiences, doing things I love nature. So going to the national parks in the states that I visited was really important to me as well.
Okay. And I have to ask, top 2 best states with their food.
With their food? Well, I'm going to have to go with California as the best state just because I have lived here for almost 17 years. And I love
Fair
California. Enough. But other than California, and I would say the best food here is probably the sushi, in my opinion. But
okay,
I would say, let's see. This is an interesting question. I've never been asked this before. I saved Hawaii for my last my last state, and I just went last year actually. And I really loved the spam musubi there, which was not something that I thought that I would like because spam doesn't really sound that appealing. But
Right.
it was great, and I loved the poke. I also
Okay.
loved, yeah, when I was in, like I mentioned, like in Massachusetts, I went lobstering. I went out on a lobster boat and actually caught my own lobster and then made like a meal of it afterward. And that was probably one of my
How
favorite
long did you stay in each
experiences.
state?
Wow.
It really depends on each one. I mean, I travel so much for work, and I've been to certain states a million times versus like some of them I only went once. So it wasn't like the same in every state. But
Wow. Well, I definitely, I don't know. I think I hit 10 states, Vlad. Vlad definitely hit a lot of states. He is somewhat experientially rich, not as much as you, and would love to get into this, but I actually fall into that sad category of perhaps experientially bankrupt with your own words, as you put
well, we
it.
can help you
And
out.
so, sorry.
We can help you out.
Oh yeah, this is why I'm very excited for this conversation. I kind of want to go ahead and start off by listening a little bit more about your journey. So I know that your journey to starting the company, Listen, all kind of started off with this video of a 29-year-old woman named Sloan, who she was able to hear for the first time. Can you walk us through that journey? And like, obviously your company does a lot of social good. I'd love to hear that aspect of your journey.
Sure. So I'll start kind of from the beginning. I'm from Flint, Michigan. Very Midwestern family, small. It's kind of like a small blue collar town, like filled with like hardworking people, but there's also a lot of problems, as you probably have seen in the news. It's famous for like the water crisis and for like Michael Moore movies, for example. So when I was growing up, I always had like this dream of getting out of there. I didn't really like judge the people that were there, but for me, I knew that my dreams would be like outside of this place I grew up. So the thing that I was so passionate about was music, and that was the number one thing in my life. I loved it more than anything and anyone could ever imagine. Like I was super obsessed with music. So I started when I was a teenager doing all of these jobs that either paid $0 or they paid like the minimum wage at the time was probably like $5 an hour. So I was doing things like picking up trash at concert venues and getting coffee for people at radio stations and, selling band merch out of vans and just like, all of these like kind of crappy jobs. But that led me eventually to getting a internship at Universal Music Group in Detroit, which is still the largest record label in the world. So that internship led me to like, being the mailroom clerk. And then I was an assistant and then kind of moved up from there. And I had a lot of amazing experiences in that job. I got to see all of these people like Taylor Swift and The Weeknd and Bieber and like The Killers and Lady Gaga. All these people like get signed to this label, and saw them like come up. They were really young too at the time, and it was an amazing experience. And eventually, that led me to move to California when I was 21, and it was basically just a huge dream come true. It was like moving to Hollywood and getting to experience that lifestyle. And I still at that
Right.
time was like really broke, like they don't really pay in the music industry that well, especially when you're that young. But I was having all these incredible experiences, and it was like the first time, like when I moved here, it was like the first time that I realized like if I really do like work hard and be intentional about my time, then I can make things happen. And it kind of just like blew my mind with like what was possible here. And yeah, one day at my office, I was surfing YouTube, as you do at the office, and I came across a random viral YouTube video, and it was of a 29-year-old woman named Sloan, who was hearing for the first time. thanks to like a special hearing aid. And it kind of stopped me in my tracks and made me think about how important music had been in my life and how it had like gotten me out of this bad place and into a place that like I could experience my dreams. And I really owe my love of music, to everything in my life. And so seeing this video, I was like, there's so many people in the world that have actually never heard anything, let alone heard music. So for me, that moment made me think of like, well, what if I could do this for someone? Like, what if I could give like one person hearing? Like, that would be the coolest thing ever. That moment inspired me to start this company called Listen that we make headphones and speakers. And we started in 2012. And since 2012, through the proceeds of selling the headphones and speakers, we've given over 50,000 people the gift of hearing. So it's been a journey.
Hey there, before we dive back into the episode, I wanted to stop for just a brief moment and express our heartfelt gratitude.
Knowing that you've chosen to spend your time with us, to listen and engage with our content truly warms our hearts.
Every story we share, every topic we discuss is made much more meaningful if you are here with us on this journey.
If you found value in what you've heard so far and you're excited as we are about the episodes to come, we'd be so honored if you'd hit that subscribe button. It not only ensures you stay informed of all of our new content, but it also supports us in continuing to create and share. From all of us here, a sincere thank you.
Now, without further ado, let's get back to the episode.
So, when did you realize, or is this couple of years into Listen, or was this when you first started off with this mission of Listen, of giving the gift of hearing to other people, of when you wanted to become, like Ferrari rich? Because like every entrepreneur, when they start off their company, day one dream is, hey, I'm going to make millions of dollars and, I'm going to buy myself a mansion. Not everybody, but most people, that's a general trend. But when did you want to become, as you call it, an experiential billionaire and not just, money rich?
It's funny. Me and my business partner, Joe, we're in this world of electronics that we didn't really know that much about going into. And obviously the main competitors to our company were like places like Apple and Sony and Beats and, Amazon. Like all of those companies have their own electronics, right? So we're quote unquote competing with the biggest companies on earth. So around like 2015, I think it was, when Beats sold to Apple for $3 billion. All of these people like around us started asking us like, when are you going to sell the company and blah, blah, blah. And then that same year I was on Forbes 30 under 30, which was really funny because I had like less than $30 in my bank account. Like we were spending all of our money traveling and giving people hearing. And so It was like, it became this, this inside joke between me and Joe about how like, we definitely were not rich, but we were experientially rich. And so when people would ask us like, when are you going to be like the next Beats or the next Dr. Dre? We'd be like, we're experiential billionaires. Because we had like literally traveled the whole world and like saw all these incredible things. Like we saw the 7 wonders of the world. We, went on safari. We saw the Northern Lights, like all these amazing things that like I could have never dreamed about when I was a kid. Ended up happening like through these experiences that we were having, like giving people hearing. And we just felt like that was worth so much more than like any number in a bank account could ever be.
And people probably would think that you are super rich because you were on Forbes, right?
Yeah, exactly. I don't think as you guys know, like as entrepreneurs, there's this giant delta between what you're worth on paper and what you're worth in your actual bank account. And it's never the same as what people think. So like our company might have been worth tens of millions of dollars. And like I could say that I was quote unquote like a millionaire like at age 27 or whatever it was. But the reality is like that's not real money. That's just what somebody
Yeah.
said it was worth. It's actually not real at all.
No, that's a very good point. Unless, of course, you go out to private equity and decide to sell your company. But yeah, no, you're absolutely correct. I want why this book? What sparked this passion? Experiential Billionaire. It's just got released a couple days ago. What? Why did you want to write this book?
I mean, the more that we did the things that we loved, which is giving back, traveling, like just having a good time, like learning new things, stuff like that. The more that we realized like that is really the purpose of life, and like the most fulfilling way of life is to like have a lot of new experiences. The reason there's a lot of reasons why we wrote this book, but I guess in 2020, I went through this whole really negative experience in my life where I went through a separation. I ended up moving out of my house, and then I got a new place, and my new place got broken into, and then Listen was having
Oh
all
wow.
these financial problems. Like we had to let go of, this is like during COVID, we had to let go of like these people that are like our family, and they've been there since the beginning. So I was going through all these negative experiences, and I had to kind of like get to the core of like who I was again. Like the charity that we'd been working with for the last 10 years, Starkey Hearing Foundation, they like temporarily shut down during COVID, and because obviously you weren't able to like travel the world and like touch hundreds of people's faces and ears a day. That was
Right.
not a possibility. So what Joe and I did was we asked like our network, like our friends, our family, like what is our value if we can't give people hearing? Because that's been our goal in our life for the last 10 years. And everybody came back with the same response. And they're like, you guys need to tell your stories. We had many people say that we had inspired them to start their own social good company, to do the things that they always wanted to do. And they were like, you need to write and you need to speak. And that's what we ended up doing. And I never saw myself as, like a keynote speaker or anything like that before this. But it really helped me get out of like that mental health crisis that I was in, like becoming depressed over all of these things that were happening in my life, and started writing down all of these stories of the amazing moments that I've had in my life, and even writing down the really terrible things that have happened to me, but how like that became like part of my life story. And then we just kept getting deeper into it. Once we figured out what we wanted to do, we started doing a lot of research, a lot of interviews with social science experts and therapists and people like that about how experiences make you, happier, healthier, live longer, etc. And then we ended up actually doing one of the biggest studies of all time about life experiences. So we interviewed 20,000 people about their most valuable life experience.
It's a lot of people.
Yeah.
What do you mean 20,000 people
have
you
a lot.
interviewed? Like literally you spoke with 20,000 people?
So we started off speaking in real life with friends, family, network, etc., asking people, what was the most valuable experience of your life? What was the biggest regret of your life? Like, what do you still want to do, and why haven't you done it? Most importantly, why? Because we wanted to figure out the why and the how. And then we went a little bit deeper. We started going to retirement homes and asking people there. Because like who better to ask than elderly people who've seen it all and done it all, right? And then we went a layer deeper than that, and we actually like opened it up to all ages and all like income, all race, like every single person that wanted to be involved with this. We asked, and it ended up, and we put it on our website, and then we ended up getting over 20,000 responses.
That's cool. How long did it take?
It was about it was about a year and a half. Yeah. And then during like this, we wrote the book, and we like incorporated all of the answers into the book, and like we really saw like what people said were their excuses and what they wish they would have done. And then we took those answers and we tried to like make a path to like, okay, here's what I want to do in my life, and this is how I can get there. So that's what the book is about.
Bridget, I absolutely love the book you've published. I think that everybody needs to read this book, starting with me. And the funny thing is, intuitively, I know that experiences, like if you ask me right now, like what are the happiest things? It's all memories and experiences. It's not an expensive watch. It's not an expensive car. It's not the home, the apartment. It's all associated with experiences. However, I think there's a lot of people like me who may recognize that, maybe on the subconscious level because I'm not thinking about it actively, but yet still won't be an experiential billionaire. How do I change that? Right? How do I? So, for example, this is a great. So, my wife's set to give birth in 2 weeks right now,
Oh,
and in my head, I'm like, oh crap, I can't travel. I can't travel for the next 4 years because of X, Y, and Z. How does someone like me? What do I do to really put the experiences first so I can truly live a happier life?
well, first, you're completely right in saying that everybody really knows this. This isn't a new concept whatsoever. Is Everybody knows that your experiences are the most important thing, right? Because when you go to like a funeral, you don't hear somebody say like, I loved Vlad because he was wealthy, or because he because he had
Yeah.
these stocks that were so interesting. And like, when you're
Right.
in the hospital bed, you're not like reaching for your wallet for like one last time. Nobody thinks about this stuff at the end of their life, and like everybody knows that, but we don't act accordingly. Like that's not taught to us in school. It's not like taught to us that our experiences are the most important and how to get them. Like we're just taught like, money equals happiness and that's the end of it. But so it's not a new concept, but it is something that we would like to help people with. And I think for you and for everyone, I think putting urgency into your life is really, really important. And it's funny, like you're saying that you're having a kid and you won't be able to travel. So my co-author Joe has two little kids, and he's made it a very, very high priority in his life to like take them traveling and teach them new things. It doesn't even have to be like they don't have to go to Bora Bora or something. They like he can just teach them how to like make a pizza, for example. It's like a very
Right.
low cost thing, like versus like ordering a
Mm.
pizza. Like they're going to remember that. They're not going to remember like you ordering a pizza. So it doesn't have to be a crazy expensive thing.
Anaya, there is one beautiful thing that you can do. There is a painting you can put on the wall which shows how many weeks left until you're gonna die, and you're marking off. So you're just putting
Yeah. So we actually
Right.
we have that in chapter 1 of the book. It's a memento mori chart. So the average lifespan of an American is 76 years old. It's 74 for men and 78 for women. So in the beginning of the book, we have the memento mori chart, and you tick off how many years that you've lived so far, which is I look at it every single day, and that sounds so morbid, but
It does. I was going to say that you're going to give me a midlife crisis right now.
it's actually
you
going
have
to
to
be
be
like the
mentally
same
stable
midlife
for
because
this.
yeah,
Right?
exactly. It's funny. So I'm 38, and so when I have my chart like on my bookshelf, I look at it every single day. So I'm exactly halfway. I'm exactly midlife. So when you think of
Okay.
midlife, most people think 50s or whatever, but the reality is that it's 38. So when I look at it every day, I'm like, I really gotta like do the things that I want to do. And you also think about things like, so once you have a kid, you're going to be like, I have 18 years, 18 years of them in my house. And so I have to do all of the things that I want to do with them in 18 years, which 18 years sounds like a lot, right? But then life gets in the way, it'll get crazy. They're going to
Right.
school and whatever. A lot of people that have like reached out to us reading this book have like teenagers, and they'll have like 14, 15-year-olds, and they'll say things like, my kid is only going to be here for another 4 years. Like, so I have to really prioritize all the things that I want to do. I have to take them on that road trip that I wanted to take them on. I have to like teach them all these life's lessons and whatever. And obviously they'll still be talking when they're older than 18, but there's less time together. Like, it's been proven that I think it's like 93% of the time that you spend with your kids in your life is before they're 18.
Yeah.
So the memento mori chart is a little scary to look at, but it also instills urgency. And so you're going to do the things that you want to do because there's only so many boxes on that chart.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna.
Yeah.
I think I'm gonna
pass it
order
over to
this
Vlad.
and put it in my office right here so I can track it.
I'm not. I don't know. It'll make me depressed.
I'll actually.
Vlad, you can just yell at me on a weekly basis.
I will share the picture with you every day, and I'm actually gonna teach it to my kids, and I'll show it to them so they understand it from the very beginning. Because when I was reading your book, I was shocked by the statistics, and you also mentioning in one of your talks that according to Cornell University, it's 76% of people at the end of their lives regret not living their ideal selves. I mean, this is kind of crazy. 76%. It's not like it's half, it's much more.
It's literally 3/4 of people.
And I think this profound statistics not only underscores the importance of living authentically, but also raises question about societal structures and expectations. So I was digging deeper, and I saw that from psychological standpoint of view, Carl Jung, the Swiss psychiatrist and psychoanalyst, emphasized the concept of individuation, the lifelong journey of becoming who you truly are. But yet social forms and governmental policies, even education systems, we see it from firsthand because we are in education space, often prioritize conformity over individuality. So considering this, how do you think societal structures might contribute to this regret?
I think what we talked about, how people have this idea in their mind of they're going to live to 100, and they're going to, maybe die in their sleep. But the reality, like we talked about, is the average age is 76, right? So society retirement is 65. So that's like the norm, right? So that's giving us just over a decade to do all of the things that we want to do, which is crazy because that's the end of your life. And a lot of people don't even reach that point, right? So that's the first problem, is that people wait. They make excuses like, I'll do this thing I want to do when I graduate, or when I get promoted, or when the kids get older. And then finally, the last one is when I retire. But what if you don't reach that? And then you look back and you're like, I wasted all this time doing what society wanted me to do, and I never did the things that I want to do. And that's where it comes back to that Cornell study, is that 76% of people don't do things that they wanted to do because they are following what A, society wants them to do, or B, someone else wants them to do. They're living someone else's reality, right? So that could be like a parent or a boss, or what they thought society wanted them to do. And that's the number one regret, which is really sad. But I'm really interested to talk to you guys about the education space, because I do think that this is probably one of the biggest problems.
This should be, the education should be a cornerstone for this, because this is where kids getting all the information. This is where they learn. And I was researching and found that in Finland education system, it's completely different. They emphasize growth over standardized testing. And
I love that. It's one of my top places I want to go, actually. I think Finland is a really interesting place.
Yeah, in Finland, they focus on the individuality, on the ideal. How kid should be developed to develop the ideal self. So what do you think, how schools can change? Maybe they should create some other subject or make more experiences. Or I know for homeschooling families, they do it a lot. But the public education system is completely different.
I mean, I think that the public education system here needs to be completely revamped. And there's, of course, like a lot of like funny memes and stuff online where it's like, wow, I learned trigonometry, but I didn't learn how to like do my taxes. You know,
100%.
Right.
I
Right.
didn't learn how to like, be in a relationship. I'd never learned how to, like go after my dreams. It was like these things that really honestly don't matter that we learn and that we never use again. Like I don't remember barely anything from school. And they also don't these standardized tests and whatever. Like if I was just judged on that for my whole life, like I would have been considered like a huge loser because I didn't do well in school and neither did my business
Hmm.
partner and co-author, but we've both started, successful companies and we're very happy. But if we were just judged off of like a school, like that's where it would have ended. And I think that's what happens to a lot of kids. Um, yeah, there's actually this really great TED talk by this kid. He's probably like in his 20s now, but he was a kid when he made it. And it's called Hack Schooling. And he goes to this like alternative type school, which I think could be really a good model for public education, where it's kind of like in Finland, where they teach things like, how to pursue happiness and not just pursue wealth. They teach like real life skills, like practical things like financial literacy and communication and problem solving versus like just, the basics of like history and math and whatever. And I think making learning fun, like I didn't personally think school was fun, in my opinion. And that's why I left school early. I never went to college. I took a job in the music industry because music was my passion, and that got me to where I wanted to go. And if I would have followed, some other person's path or what my school wanted me to do, I would have never been happy. And that's the real goal in life, is to be happy and to follow your passions.
What is?
Have we all been sold a
Of course we
lie?
are.
Like as we were just speaking about it, right? The traditionally when we grow up in school, when we go to undergrad or even grad school, the goal is, hey, retirement's at 65, 66, whatever it is. Social security benefits don't even kick in until 66, or I don't even know what. It's ridiculous. Contribute to your 401k. When you're contributing to the 401k, most of these people are contributing to the SP 500, the top 500 companies. For those of you who haven't researched it, the SP 500, it's so artificially inflated because you have all of these 401ks that are tapped into this. I mean, we live in a capitalist country, which is fantastic. I think it is right now the best form to live in. I'm not disagreeing here. And America is, I love America.
Me
Right?
too.
Lots of people have negative things to say. I love
Me
America,
too.
right? Especially us. We're entrepreneurs. We've been able to create things. And America is one of the best places to create a company.
But not to raise
But
your kids, you
for
mean?
the masses, it's almost like we've right. That's what I'm saying, right? Like I would raise my child so differently from knowing what I know personally. Like I feel like the masses have been
Come on,
lied
in
to.
in
Oh,
Sweden, I have relatives in Sweden. Their kids, they have this gym class. They're going to the mountains. If
I mean, that's so obvious. Like that's what we should be doing. Like it's so crazy. Like there's no nature in school as far as like I can see.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Well, not in New York City. Definitely, definitely not in New York City. But Bridget, I want to ask you. So I saw an Instagram post back in December of 2022. You had a whiteboard with a marker with your 2023 goals, and you had a lot of it complete in a red marker. I think you're reflecting upon those goals. My question to you is, can you share with us any of your 2024 goals? I know I'm probably asking you 2 months earlier, but any kind of 2024 goals that you have, maybe that you would like to share with our audience?
Sure. So my big goals this year, the book was obviously number one, right? Like that's a huge project. It took a couple years to do, and I'm super proud of it. It was a huge, huge thing. I also had some other like travel goals. Like I went to India this year. I also saw the pyramids, which was amazing. A couple like smaller things. Like I really wanted to reconnect with a lot of my old friends because I was reading about how one of the biggest regrets in life is like not keeping up with old friends. So I was like, I want to avoid that. And that's been really impactful this year. For next year, I would say I do have one thing that I haven't really talked about that I'm really scared about, but also interested to get into because I think it will put me out of my comfort zone. So I want to write a comedy set about
Okay.
all of these like stories that I had that were a little too, I don't know the word, a little too like depressing or traumatizing to put in the book.
Hmm.
But I'm going to turn it into like a comedy set. So
I love that. Sounds amazing.
yeah, so that's my big goal, I think, is like by the end of 2024 is I want to do like a set of comedy that talks about like my childhood and stuff like that. I think that
Wow,
that'll be
that
really funny.
that sounds amazing, and that's a great content delivery system. I mean,
Yeah,
through
I
humor.
love
I mean, I absolutely love that. I'm going to check in with you midway of 2024 to see how that's coming along.
accountability is so important. So I would love if you checked in with me.
Well, I don't think you need any help really with the accountability end. Looking through your social media and the content that you push out. I think you're really great on that end. And as for your book, I think your book is a must read for everyone because, as I mentioned, you intuitively know it, but you don't. You need that reminder, and you need all of those stories to really just stop for a couple of seconds and say, "Hey, wow, I'm really missing out. You know, I need to take some actions." Uh, who did you write this book for? Who was it intended for?
It's funny. It started off as a book that was more about the science and more about the survey and more about like the like the nitty gritty of experiences and why those are the most important thing. But then it kind of turned into like a half memoir, and Joe and I really wrote a lot of our personal stories. And as I was saying earlier, like in 2020, I was going through a mental health crisis, and I started writing it more for myself because I was like, if I'm
Mm,
going through these things, I know there's other people going through these things right now, and how can I help other people? But the book is so it's kind of half memoir, half exercises and things for people to get what they want out of their life. And the message has really resonated with so many people. I think it's really lame to say that a book or a movie or whatever is for everyone, but I really do think that
right.
it could be for anyone. Because everybody has problems and everybody has dreams, right? It's like, how do you get to those dreams? And I don't know. I think it's really interesting. I mean, we talk to a lot of universities, so a lot of young people, but I really love talking to the older people that will come back and, message us
Mm,
and say, like, I've been thinking this way my whole life and I'm going to change it. And like, I just, like I had someone that, like, my neighbor, for example, was like, I'm going to go to Burning Man this year. And she's like
mm,
much older, and I was like, wow, that's really cool that you would do that, even though it's clearly going to be like very uncomfortable for you and like not an experience that you would normally have. Like I love hearing that feedback of like people. um, we did a podcast the other day where the woman said, um, my daughter is 14 and her goal is to go to all 50 states, and she read the story about us going to all 50 states, and she's like, now we're going to do that, and we already started planning it out for this summer and next summer. And
wow.
I just love that because that's like the memory that they're going to have for the rest of their life. It's like,
Yeah,
did this with my mom. Like that's so cool. So I really do think it
that
could be
is.
for
Yeah.
anyone.
I want to ask.
So, what would you think is the number one exercise or tip for those who are stuck in their day-to-day business life and they want to do it, but they're never gonna do it? So, what exercise would you recommend for them to move this needle?
So the first big exercise in the book is really the start of like the path to like becoming rich in life experiences, and it's my favorite one. It's called the treasure map. And what it is so imagine your doctor just called you and told you that you only have a year left to live. Okay, get out a piece of paper, write down the top 10 things that you would do in this year. And it has to be stuff that you can do in a year. Like it has to be like, I'm not going to tell you what it has to be, but whatever you think that you want to do in that 10, those 10 things. And then the next step in the exercise is say that you only had 1 month left to live. What are the things that you would do then? And then the next one is one day. Obviously, people don't say I want to travel the world or I want to, change my life in one day. They do the things like I'm going to call the people that I love and I'm going to forgive someone. I'm going to, do something that's really important to them. And the goal of that exercise is to really put urgency on your life, because the people who change their life are the people that have the near death experiences. So this exercise gives people, the near death experience without actually having that experience. And it really drills down on like what's important to you. And the most important thing about this exercise is when you look at these 3 lists, you put a star next to the things that you're currently working on. And with most people, it's 0 stars. So
Wow.
all of these people are saying those are the most important things in my life. If I had 1 year left to
Right.
live, I would do all of these things, but I'm not working on any of them. So
Wow.
that's a great way to put urgency into your life. And for me, like I really try to make those lists like every year, because I've obviously been doing this a while. So over time it changes and, grows. But as you were saying, like about my 2023 list, like that's basically what it was. Like if I just had this year, what would I do? And I picked the top places I wanted to go. I picked the things that meant something to me, like finishing this book, like getting like a legacy piece out in the world was really important to me. And then, helping others and like enjoying nature and like being with my friends and family. Like that's what's important to me.
No, it's
I love that.
so funny and interesting. Other day I was watching also some interview. I don't remember with who. He was saying that he's making right now like $100 million a year. He already bought all the Ferraris, Lamborghinis, cars, watches, everything. When especially first years when he started to make money. So this what was making him happy. And right now he's saying, I don't need anything of this. What I need is usually free. It's just to sit with my friends, with my family, have fun. Usually it's some not even fancy bar or in my house. Its house shouldn't be even some mansion or anything. Just the company, So basically whatever we need is free. It's right here. And I think this is also one of the biggest reasons people delay things. They think that traveling is expensive. They think I don't know, everything comes back to the money, I think. One of the biggest reasons people.
Yeah, but if money is a
But
priority.
unfortunately, in America, it kind of is true, though. I mean, most people, I mean, not, but a lot of Americans have to cover their rent, right? If they're only one paycheck away from not covering their rent, so this is a bigger problem. I
But
completely
you don't
agree
have
with
to
you.
go
But
to other states to
in
travel.
America,
You can
we
just go
have
to park, meet with friends more often, bring them to your house or something. I mean, this small
okay.
micro experiences also counts.
For sure. Yeah, I want to
Yeah,
be
fair
clear
enough.
about
Yeah,
the book is not money versus experiences, right? Like we're like
right.
everybody needs money. We're not like saying that like you don't need money to be happy. I think that you need a certain level to like, you know, educate yourself, like to do things like have healthcare, for example. But it's not everything. And if you want to do something, you can find a way to save over time, and maybe it's going to take a long time. But if you want to do something, you can do it. You can just have to prioritize your experiences. I like to say like I have an experience like allowance. Like when you're a kid you might have an allowance, and like I dedicate a certain portion of like money every year to like just having experiences versus buying things, because like I've had things and I've not had things, and I don't think it really makes a difference in my life if I have the thing or not, but I will always remember doing the experience.
Is there a percent that I should be allocating from my income for experiences, because we all have this like, I think the rule for rent is 30%, right? There's a rule for everything, like foods and utilities and rent. Is there a benchmark or something that you would say, hey, X% should be dedicated for experiences?
It's funny. I really wanted to make that equation in the book, and that was one of the things I wanted to do, but that I didn't end up doing because I think it's really different for everyone. It's like when we asked the 20,000 people, like what did you still want to do in your life? A lot of these things weren't expensive. It was like learn how to play guitar, learn how to speak Spanish, stuff like that. That doesn't really cost a lot of money, but it does cost time. And so I think it's more important to maybe make that time equation and make like, okay, like X amount of my day is going to be spent learning something new, or instead of just watching Netflix, which I love Netflix and there's no like nothing against that, but maybe instead of watching this show tonight, I'm gonna like learn how to play a song on the
I
guitar,
love that.
or learn how to like cook a new dish or whatever. And I think so the time thing is probably more important than money in my
You see, everything comes to that all experiences can be free.
Yeah, no, that's such a good advice. No, I was just going to say, because my whole framing in my mind is totally off, because you're right. It is time. How do that question should be more like, how much time in my day am I going to allocate to learn something, right? Like for me, I've always wanted to go on Google and replicate like a Michelin star a chef dish. You have no idea how many times I pulled up an article and I was going to do it, but I just never did. But like, that's a great experience for me personally, but I haven't done it. I need to do it.
I really want to help with that. Okay, so I'm obsessed with cooking. I cook every single day, and I would love to like be your accountability partner.
That would be incredible. That would be absolutely incredible.
This is like what lights me up. Like I love learning how to cook new things. So
It's also very important to understand when you are not alone that you have to comply with your partner's wantings and experiences that he or she wants. not to be egoistic. Okay, I want to travel. She doesn't like to travel. That's it. We go to travel or something like that. So it
yeah,
should be in.
the best way to like build new relationships is proven is to have new experiences together. Like over and over, that's been proven. It's like that's why people get in these stagnant relationships, whether it's a friendship, family, or like your husband, your wife, whatever, is like is you're doing the same routine over and over again, and it's not exciting, right? So if you say like, let's go try this new thing, let's go try this new restaurant, let's go learn this new skill, like you could take your wife or whoever like to a cooking class and learn how to do that. Like that's something that you'll remember and that you'll grow together through. And I think that's like the most fun part about being in a friendship or a relationship is like learning new things together.
Yeah, I just read that study. It's 100%, 100%. Vlad, I think Bridget, Vlad has one last question for you, and then I'll have one last question for you.
Yeah, I love the story when you were saying about how you like the music and you started this journey, even working for some very bad job, but still you was very determined in this. So can you share some story where everything was almost falling apart and how you navigated this time?
I mean, I think when I look back at those years, like those are the very early years of my life and career. I was like a teenager and I was doing everything I possibly could to get, like, I didn't grow up with money. I didn't grow up with anyone around me. I didn't know anyone that was an entrepreneur or in the entertainment industry or lived in like a nice place or anything. Like I didn't have any connections. So when I moved here, I'm like seeing all these kids and like good for them, but seeing all these kids that would like get internships because their parents worked at wherever, that was not me at all. So when I was in high school, I remember I was working at this place that held concerts, like this big arena, and it's also where the Detroit Pistons played for many years. But I would skip things like prom and like homecoming and stuff like that to like work and pick up trash at concert venues because I knew, like, I was that determined even then to like get out of there and like have a better life. And sometimes, not everything can be like a fun, fulfilling experience, but that those are like the building blocks that got me to like where I am today. And even though I missed out on like some things, maybe like I, was really determined and I did it. So it was worth
How many
it.
times you wanted to give up?
um, Whew, I would say probably not as much as you would think. I mean, even with Listen, the journey it wasn't like we created this company and then we got rich or something. It was like very roller coastery and we went through so many downtimes. But when we were on these trips and we saw people here for the first time, it was like, oh my God, like how can I not do
Right.
this? Like this is so much more fulfilling and I'm going to remember this forever. And this person is always going to have that experience. And there's this ripple effect that happens, when you do something for someone or even yourself. And then, like that person that we helped here, like they could like help someone do something in their life, or they could like become this, artist or this, whatever it is, they could start their own company. And like that would create ripple effects for all these other people. And like, you just never know. And I think that that's what really keeps me going. And I never really like thought like I'm going to quit this. Like the very, very rarely I was like, oh, I'll just quit being an entrepreneur
Mm.
and go back to like some normal thing. Like I just think life is a little too short for you to not follow your dreams.
Bridget, I have one last question for you before we let you go, which is who has been one of the most strongest or inspiring person in your life, and what lessons have you learned from them?
This is a tough question for me because I didn't really grow up with having people around me that I wanted to be like. And that probably sounds meaner than it is. Like I love my family. It's not that. It's I just didn't have a role model of like what I wanted to do.
Mm.
So what I really did was like is look to the people who've done it before. And this is what anyone can do. They don't have to have a role model in their life. We live in such an amazing time right now, that you can just go on YouTube and you can learn from the best minds on earth for free. It's so incredible. Or like you can go, read books of like the most incredible people in the world. And it's like most of this stuff is free or cheap to learn. So that's what I did. I spent a ton of time when I was young, like looking to people that have like done this life before and like learning from them. And I think it's interesting, everybody says like you're the average of the five people you surround yourself with, which I think is really true.
Mm.
But you could, if you don't have those five people to be surrounded by that you're inspired by, you can spend that time like digitally, like on like with a podcast that you love, for example. So if I'm spending like 2 hours a day watching a podcast of someone that I want to be like, that's like influencing me to be better, even though I don't actually know this person, right? Like I'm not, best friends with Tim Ferriss and Andrew Huberman or whoever, but I can like learn from them. And that's such a cool thing that we get to experience in our life.
What a wonderful answer. This is actually a very unique but very important answer to this question that I've actually heard. This is we've done maybe 70 or 80 episodes, right, Vlad? And someone has always had
Right.
the conventional answer, which we love. And it's so I love that question because it gives an insight into whether it was a teacher or a parent or a neighbor, whoever it was. But it just made me realize, uh, I mean, your answer can resonate with so many individuals that are listening to this. I've actually never thought about that, and so thank you for that. Actually,
Yeah.
Bridget, it
Yeah.
has been an absolute pleasure. I want to sum it up by there's a small segment in your book that I absolutely loved. You probably know where this falls in your book, but I want to read it out. Obviously, it has a lot of emphasis here, which is no matter how much money you make, at the end, you'll be willing to give it all away for just one more day. Experiences are the greatest wealth of life, and the time is your currency. It's absolutely true. I truly, truly hope that I will be more mindful of this. I certainly will be, but the hope is, you know, people that will be reading your book and your work, or even listening to some of your, I know you have a lot of videos and speeches out on YouTube and your website, as you said. What a great way. And this is a very important topic. For those listening, you can purchase Bridget's book today. It's called Experiential Billionaire: Build a Life Rich in Experiences and Die with No Regrets. Or go to BridgetHilton.com. That's BridgetHilton.com. Bridget, thank you so much.
Thank
Thank
you
you so
so
much.
much. And
I will
thank you
go
for
ahead.
the
I'll go
last.
ahead and book next trip right now after we're done.
I can't wait to
I
hear
need to
about
do
it.
the same.
Please let us